New road bikes are really expensive these days, aren't they? You don't need me to tell you that. And while some of the features are nice to have, not everybody wants or needs them. So why not save the money and buy an old bike like this instead? Maybe throw some upgrades at it and enjoy the performance and the ride without the massive hit to your bank balance. So this is a second-hand Cannondale CAAD 12 I bought for 500 quid. And I'll do a full cost breakdown of what it cost me so far later in the video, because as you can see, I have changed some parts on it, and we'll go through details of those in a minute. We'll also go for a ride and see how it performs as well, and whether an upgraded old bike is actually any good compared to a more modern bike. But first, a word from today's sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace is the all-in-one platform that makes it really quick to produce a professional looking website. It's also dead easy as well. Thanks to the fluid engine drag and drop interface, you can easily customize your website or get started with a massive library of lovely templates. So getting a website up and running for your business today doesn't need to be a daunting process. If you run any kind of business at all, Squarespace is a place to be. So if you need a new website and you like the sound of all of that, you get a free trial right now using the link down below in the description. And if you enjoy it, we're 10% off your first purchase with my special code on screen right now and also down below as well. Right, let's go for a tour around the bike and some of the upgrades and changes I've made and some of the drawbacks of buying a second-hand bike. Now, the first upgrade were some new wheels and tyres. You get a big boost in performance and ride quality from a better set of wheels. It's always a good place to spend a bit of money. So I've gone for some Hunt aluminium wheels to try and keep the price down. These are about £400 or £500 for a pair, which is pretty good, but they're lighter and they're also, thanks to the profile, a little bit aero as well. They're also tubeless compatible as well, so nice and future-proofed. But right now, I have a 30mm Pirelli winter tyre with TPU inner tubes for testing, and clearance, in case you're wondering, is pretty good around the back of the frame, but quite close at the fork, partly due to the plastic sleeve for the brake hose on the inside of the fork, which is one of the first drawbacks of buying a second-hand bike, which I'll go through in a moment. The next upgrade was a new saddle and a new handlebar and stem. I've chosen a Pro Vibe aluminium handlebar to match the wheels and the frame material, and also for that objective of trying to keep the price to a sensible level and not get carried away with loads of carbon fancy parts. A nice round profile, which I like personally, and they're also narrow as well, just 38 centimeters, because that is fashionable and trendy these days, and also because a narrow handlebar makes a smaller frontal surface area, and that's really important when it comes to drag and aerodynamics. And while the bike is by no means aerodynamic, I mean, you've got all the cables here and no aero profiles, I thought if I go for a narrow handlebar, I might get some of the aero benefits without buying an aero bike. And it would be interesting to see how aero this bike is with the change I've made to it compared to something like a Tarmac SL8. Maybe that's a wind tunnel test video for the future, and if you want to see that, maybe hit that join button down below, which helps support the channel, allows me to make content like this and possibly a wind tunnel test as well. I've also slammed the stem as well because, well, I'm an idiot and I can't help myself, but it looks really cool, looks really clean, and yes, I know it's not the most comfortable setup, but I can just about manage a slammed stem on a race bike these days. So while I still can, I slammed it because it looks really smart. Although I do think the bike needs a -17-degree stem to make it horizontal with the top tube, which is a slight annoyance how it points up towards the sky. And the last detail up front is some nice physique bar tape. I'm a real stickler for bar tape that gives a nice amount of cushioning, and it's also tacky and grippy, so when it's warm, which is not today, I can ride without gloves. So nice bar tape, which also matches the saddle, which is a brand new physique and tear saddle I'm currently testing. So a video on that coming very soon. Next up is the group set, and this is the biggest change to the bike, I'm going for the brand new Shimano 105 12-speed mechanical shifting group set with hydraulic disc brakes. And yes, I know I could have saved a load of money and gone for the older but still available 11-speed 105 group set. But I really want to see what this new group set is all about and how it performs and works, because crazy as it seems, this is currently Shimano's flagship mechanical road bike group set. There is no Ultegra and there is no Dura-Race, as sad as it is to say out loud. So this is currently the highest end offering if you want mechanical shifting with hydraulic disc brakes. And I think it looks really good on a bike too, because it's all black, and from a distance, if you obscure the logos, it looks a bit like Dura-Race. So very high end, nice rear mech, lovely set of cranks, shifters, front mech. It looks really high end, looks very premium. I think it looks really good on a bike. So 12-speed shifting, mechanical, hydraulic disc brakes as well, 160 rotors front and rear. So yeah, I can't wait to see how it performs, and there will be a full review separately of the group sets to see whether it's any good, which I'm sure it is, because it's Shimano after all, and whether the bigger question is mechanical still worth buying in an age of wireless and electronic shifting, or has mechanical had its time and is now one for the history books? Now, although this bike isn't actually all that old, I think it's a 2018 model, so that makes it about 6 years old, which is pretty young in the grand scheme of things. We did run into some compatibility issues in building the bike. And compatibility is a bit of a loaded word in the bike world these days. So a few issues to bring to your attention. The first one are the axles. All modern road bikes have through axles of a 12mm diameter. This bike is pre-through axle and has quick releases. So that's one small issue, but thankfully wheel manufacturers like Hunt still make their hubs compatible with through axle and quick release as well. The other issue was the rear axle spacing, which is 135 on this bike, while modern bikes are wider at 142. But thankfully, again, Hunt saved the day with end caps to make these wheels fit the rear axle spacing. So two small issues straight away. Now, the other issue is with fitting the disc brakes to the bike. This bike was launched just before flat mount really caught on. So the frame is flat mount compatible with the necessary bracket, but the fork was definitely pre-through axle and pre-flat mount. So it has a post mount, which was and is a mountain bike standard. So I had to buy a special bracket adapter to fit the flat mount caliper to the fork, but I managed to find one and that was all fine. And then the other small issue was the bottom bracket. So Cannondale invented BB30, and this one has a BB30A, so slightly wider bottom bracket, press fit of course, and to fit the 24mm spindle of the Shimano crankset, we use a wheels manufacturing thread together bottom bracket to allow us to fit the Shimano crankset to the BB30A bottom bracket. That was actually quite easy. So we definitely faced some small hurdles in upgrading an older bike, one that isn't really that old, but it shows that it is possible to overcome those small challenges and give an old bike a new lease of life, as we have done with the CAAD 12. So the bike is all built and ready to ride, and last night, before I put the pedals and bottle cage on, I weighed it, and it weighs, for a size 56, 7.8 kilograms, which I think is pretty good for a 105 group set with an aluminium frame and no real attempt to make it super light. And it is definitely lighter than some newer carbon bikes I have tested in recent years, so pretty decent weight, I think it has to be said. So I think it's time I got to change and we hit the road and go for a spin and see how it actually rides. Right, okay, you join me out in the country lanes. The sun is out, been riding for about 50 minutes, got onto some quieter roads, and the bike feels really good. It feels like new. So much better than when I first bought it last year. What a difference, what an improvement. It's riding so sweetly, just like a brand new shop fresh bike. Nice distinctive free hub sound as well. It's all hunky-dory. The wheels and tyres have clearly made the biggest difference to how this bike rides compared to when I picked it up a few months ago. Lighter weight, a bit more aero, just a nicer overall ride quality. Definitely shows the value of upgrading to some nice wheels and tyres. And I'm really surprised, but also thankful, I've got a 30mm wide tyre, because as much as I love the CAAD 12, it's not as smooth as a carbon bike. The 30mm tyres do help compared to the tyres I had on when I bought it, but even at low pressures, it's still quite a busy ride, a lot of feedback through the handlebar and the saddle. So yes, it rides very well, and very stiff and responsive, but it's not as smooth as a carbon bike. The Tarmac, Defy, TCR really shows the difference the material makes. Carbon is a better material if you really value ride comfort. I mean, it's not bad. I am really splitting hairs here, but it's definitely a firmer ride with a bit more vibrations coming through it. But you know, really, may not be too hard on the bike. Let me know what you think down below. But let's move on. The new group set, what a difference. Better ergonomics from the new hoods compared to the really rather odd hoods on that old, thankfully discontinued 105 group set the bike came with. 12 speed is here nor there really. There's an extra ratio in the cassette and it tightens up a little bit. And I got a nice 11/34 spread. We're compact, so the heels are no problem at all. And the shift quality is, wow, flawless. It's so good. Just the merest tap of the lever and you're in another gear. So quiet, quick. Is it as good as electronic? Well, no, electronic shifting is delightful, but this is a great reminder that mechanical shifting still cuts it. It works so well. And a nice benefit of the group set, no damn batteries to run flat or charge up before a ride. So that's a benefit straight away. New bar tape will freshen up any bike, old or new, and the Physique bar tape is very nice. And the Pro handlebar is wrapped around. It's working well for me today. I'm not all that used to a narrow handlebar, so I'm really keen to spend more time on a narrow handlebar. I'm so used to a 42cm wide handlebar, so we'll see how we get on. And it fits good. I like a 56 Cannondale, fits me well. And even though the steering is slammed, I don't feel too low at the front. Feels pretty good actually. Feels similar to a Tarmac on my TCR. So yeah, comfort is good, fit is good. I can reach the drops without hurting my back too much. The only thing that hurt me so far is this new Physique saddle. It's a bit firmer than I'm used to. I've been riding for a bit longer now and I am really liking how the bike rides. Yes, it doesn't compare to a carbon race bike, but for what it cost me, 500 quid for the bike and then a bit of money on the parts, we'll dive into that in a few minutes. I think it's a cracking way to get yourself a bike that doesn't cost a fortune and rides really well. And it's so nice to give an old frame, an old bike, a second lease of life, because yes, I like upgrading and buying new bikes, but it's kind of nice to give an old bike a second chance. So maybe it's an opportunity for more of us to look again a bit more closely at older bikes, and I use the word older with caution, and see if we can maybe spruce them up with some new parts and keep them riding. Anyway, you're probably dying to know how much I spent on upgrading this old bike, so I'll head back, we'll dive into the maths and see what it adds up to. Okay, let's go through what this bike actually cost to build, and I should make it clear, just in case, the objective wasn't to make it as cheap as possible. I was avoiding carbon fibre for obvious reasons, but I didn't try and skimp and cut corners where possible, just to put that out there straight away. So the bike cost me £500 to buy. Then the big upgrade was the group set. Shimano 105 12-speed is currently retailing for £550, down from its launch price of nearly £1,000. Next up were the Hunt 34 Aero Disc SL wheels, which cost £500, so two big chunks of cash for the wheels and group set. And to be honest, I could have stopped here, but I carried on upgrading. So next on the list were the Pirelli P0 Race 4S winter tyres, because the roads are filthy right now. They cost £80 a pair and 30mm wide. I then bought some TPU inner tubes for £25 for a pair from Amazon, link down below for an upcoming video. Next up was a Pro Vibe handlebar and a super light stem, which was a bit of a luxury, shall we say, and the stem and handlebar cost £200. The Physique bar tape is about £15, depending where you shop around, and the Physique anti saddle with metal rails, not carbon, remember, was £100. And that gives me a grand total of £1,970, just shy of £2,000. The one cost I haven't included in my totals here is the build by Scott at Cotswolds Bike Works, because he very kindly did the build for free. So definitely worth following him on Instagram and checking out his website if you need a bike service or maintenance in the Cotswolds. Definitely recommend his services. So very big thanks to Scott for that. So the bike was clearly not a cheap build, and I could have done it cheaper and used some parts I had lying around, old handlebar, saddle and other bits and bobs. But I wanted to try and do the frame justice by doing a really nice build, which I think you'll agree, hopefully it is a nice build for sure. Now, how does it compare to a new bike? Is it cheaper, better value to buy a new bike compared to buying an old frame and upgrading it as I have done? So currently a brand new CAAD 13 with 11-speed 105 is retailing for £2,300. So mine are cheaper, but the CAAD 13 is a better frame and you get better features. None of the compatibility issues I ran into will be present on that bike, through axles and flat mount and so on. Cannondale doesn't currently offer the CAAD 13 with 12-speed mechanical, just 12-speed Di2, which is more money. Another option is a Ribble, the UK bike brand, which will sell you an aluminium road bike, their Endurance, with 105 12-speed mechanical for £1,500, which is clearly cheaper than my upgraded second-hand bike, which is probably the smarter choice if you are buying a new bike. But in defense of my CAAD 12, I think it's a better frame than the rather generic one from Ribble, and I think, in fact, I know the CAAD 12 will be worth more money in the future than that Ribble, which I think will depreciate harder than the CAAD 12. They are holding their price really well. The CAAD 10 and the CAAD 12 are becoming very sought after because they are a classic bike. So that adds more value to that build beyond just the ticket price of the bikes. So it turned into quite an expensive build from that £500 starting price, but I am very pleased with the bike it has become. And first impressions are very good, but I've done one ride so far, so I'll keep riding over the next few weeks and see how my relationship goes with the bike. Does it get better or does it get worse? And will I decide it's a waste of money upgrading an old bike? And I will do a separate review on the 105 group set once I've logged a decent number of miles through different conditions as well. So stay tuned for that. Anyway, that's all for today. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, and if you want to see my previous video on buying the CAAD 12, then watch the video right up here. Make sure you subscribe to the channel by hitting the button right here, and if you want to join the channel, pay a small monthly charge, you can support the channel and get other perks as well by hitting that join button down below. Right, that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again very soon.